The black SUVs rolled through the gates of Fort Bradley Military Base without warning, catching the guards by surprise. As the lead vehicle stopped at the checkpoint, the rear window lowered to reveal President Donald Trump. "Good morning, soldier," Trump said to the wide-eyed guard. "I'd like to speak with your commanding officer." Within minutes, Colonel James Harrington was rushing down the steps of the headquarters building, hastily adjusting his uniform. A 20-year veteran with multiple combat deployments, Harrington prided himself on being unflappable. Yet the sight of the presidential motorcade had caught him completely off guard. "Mr. President," Harrington said, extending his hand. "We had no notification of your visit, sir." "That was intentional, Colonel," Trump replied with a slight smile. "Sometimes it's good to see how things really run, not just the polished version." Harrington nodded, quickly organizing an impromptu honor guard, while his aide whispered frantically into a phone, alerting key personnel. "No need for all that," Trump said, waving off the formalities. "I'd prefer a working visit. Show me what you're doing here at Fort Bradley." As they toured the facility, Trump showed surprising knowledge of military operations, asking pointed questions about readiness and training programs. They passed through the communications center where several officers stood at attention, including Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell, head of military intelligence. Something about Mitchell caught the president's attention. Perhaps it was the way she carried herself, or the impressive array of commendations on her uniform. He paused. "Colonel Harrington, I'd like a word with Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell." Mitchell's eyebrows raised slightly, the only indication of her surprise. As the head of the base's intelligence division, she handled sensitive information daily, but a direct request from the commander-in-chief was unprecedented. "Of course, Mr. President," she replied, leading them toward her office. "My team handles signal intelligence and threat assessment for the Eastern Seaboard." As they walked, Trump's expression grew more serious. "Good," he said quietly, "because I believe we may have a situation that requires your expertise." Mitchell quickly dismissed her staff and secured her office for the presidential conversation, sensing that whatever brought the president to her door unannounced was both urgent and confidential. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell's office was modest, but meticulously organized. Maps of global hotspots adorned one wall, while multiple monitors displayed encrypted data feeds on another. She quickly cleared a classified document from her desk as the president settled into the chair across from her. "Thank you for making time, Lieutenant Colonel," Trump said, his tone more serious than during the base tour. "What I'm about to share stays in this room." Mitchell nodded. "Understood, Mr. President." Trump leaned forward. "For the past week, my wife has noticed the same vehicles appearing near her motorcade. 3 different cars, rotating their positions, but always present." Mitchell's training kicked in immediately. "The Secret Service has been notified, I assume?" "They investigated," Trump replied, a hint of frustration in his voice. "Said it was just media coverage, nothing unusual. But Melania has excellent situational awareness. She insisted something felt off about these particular vehicles." The president pulled out his phone and showed Mitchell several photos, clearly taken from inside the First Lady's motorcade, of a blue sedan and a black SUV positioned at different intersections. "She started documenting them herself," Trump explained. "Notice anything?" Mitchell studied the images. Same vehicles, different distances, different angles, but they're maintaining visual contact while trying to appear random. She looked up. "That's not typical media behavior. That's surveillance tradecraft." Trump nodded, seemingly relieved that someone was taking the concern seriously. "Exactly what Melania said. The Secret Service is excellent, but they're overwhelmed with threats. I need someone with fresh eyes on this." Mitchell straightened in her chair. "Mr. President, while this isn't technically military jurisdiction—" "I'm aware," Trump interrupted. "Consider this a special request from your commander-in-chief. I need to know if my wife is in danger." Mitchell considered for a moment, then pressed the intercom on her desk. "Captain Jenkins, report to my office immediately." Within minutes, a trim, serious-looking officer in his mid-30s appeared at the door, his surprise at seeing the president quickly masked by professional composure. "Captain Robert Jenkins is our surveillance specialist," Mitchell explained. "Former FBI counterintelligence before joining the military. If anyone can identify what we're dealing with, it's him." Jenkins reviewed the photos, asking precise questions about timing, routes, and patterns. He requested permission to coordinate with the Secret Service and access their surveillance feeds. "Whatever you need," Trump authorized. "But keep the circle small. If there's something to this, I don't want to spook them." As the meeting concluded, Mitchell's secure phone buzzed. She answered, listening intently, her expression growing more concerned. "Sir," she said after hanging up, "one of our routine data sweeps just flagged something. There's been unusual electronic surveillance activity near 3 of the First Lady's recent charity events. Cell tower mimicking, possibly to intercept communications." Trump's face darkened. "So there is something." "We don't know yet," Mitchell cautioned, "but we're going to find out. Captain Jenkins will assemble a team immediately." As they left Mitchell's office, she noticed the president's jaw was set with determination. Whatever his public persona might be, in this moment she saw only a man concerned for his family's safety and a commander who expected results. "Lieutenant Colonel," Trump said before rejoining his security detail, "I've made a lot of enemies over the years. Some of them may be trying to get to me through my wife." Mitchell nodded. "We'll identify them, sir, and we'll stop them." Captain Jenkins transformed a secure conference room at Fort Bradley into an improvised command center within hours. Multiple screens displayed surveillance footage, traffic camera feeds, and facial recognition software running in real time. 4 junior intelligence officers worked at terminals, each focused on different aspects of the investigation. "Sir, we've identified the 3 primary vehicles," Jenkins reported as Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell entered. "A 2023 blue Ford Fusion, a black Chevrolet Tahoe, and a silver Honda Accord. All with tinted windows, all with rental plates traced to the same agency in Arlington." Mitchell nodded. "And the drivers?" Jenkins tapped his tablet, bringing up 4 driver's license photos on the main screen. "We've confirmed these individuals at multiple locations following the First Lady's motorcade. Jason Mercer, 39, Alicia Dawson, 34, Marcus Levin, 42, and Derek Walsh, 36. "What do we know about them?" Mitchell asked, studying the faces. "That's where it gets interesting," Jenkins replied. "They're all freelance photographers with past employment at various media outlets. Nothing suspicious on the surface. But when we dug deeper..." He swiped to a new screen showing social media posts and website screenshots. "They all have connections to 3 websites known for publishing particularly aggressive content against the administration." Mitchell frowned. "So we're looking at politically motivated surveillance." "It appears so," Jenkins confirmed. "But their behavior goes beyond typical paparazzi tactics. They're using counter-surveillance techniques, encrypted communications, and systematically mapping the First Lady's movements." A young intelligence analyst approached with a tablet. "Captain, We've completed the background analysis. 2 of them, Mercer and Walsh, have prior arrests for stalking and harassment, though the charges were later dropped. And they've made concerning statements online about exposing the truth about the First Lady. Jenkins took the tablet, reviewing the information. These aren't just photographers looking for a scoop. They're coordinating their efforts with unusual sophistication. Mitchell turned to the analyst. What about the electronic surveillance we detected? Confirmed, ma'am. Someone deployed IMSI catchers near 2 charity events. These devices can intercept cell phone communications, including text messages and calls. We've traced the digital signature to equipment purchased by Levin 3 months ago. The conference room door opened, and President Trump entered, accompanied by a single Secret Service agent. The room immediately stood at attention. "At ease," Trump said. "What have you found, Captain?" Jenkins presented the evidence methodically, showing how the surveillance pattern had intensified over recent weeks, with the team gradually moving closer to the First Lady's vehicle. Trump studied the photos of the 4 individuals, his expression hardening when he saw Jason Mercer. "I recognize this one. Secret Service removed him from a rally in 2020 for aggressive behavior. He later wrote a hit piece full of fabrications." "Sir," Mitchell interjected, "while their behavior is concerning, we need to determine if this constitutes an actual threat or just aggressive journalism." Trump nodded. "I understand the distinction, Colonel, but these tactics go beyond the First Amendment. My family deserves privacy and safety." The president turned to Jenkins. "What do you recommend?" Jenkins straightened. "We coordinate with FBI and local law enforcement to monitor these individuals more closely. We place undercover agents at the First Lady's next public appearance. If they cross the line into illegal surveillance or stalking, we have cause to intervene." Trump considered this. "Make it happen. But remember, this stays quiet. No leaks to the press." As the team finalized their plan, Mitchell noticed Trump standing at the window, momentarily lost in thought. Despite his public bravado, she glimpsed genuine concern in his expression, a reminder that behind the political figure was a husband worried about his wife. "We'll have a plan in place by morning, Mr. President," Mitchell assured him. "These individuals won't get close to the First Lady again." Trump turned from the window. "I trust your team, Colonel. Let's make sure this situation is resolved quickly and properly." He checked his watch. "Melania has an event at Children's National Hospital tomorrow afternoon. That gives us less than 24 hours. As the president left to return to Washington, Jenkins gathered his team for a detailed briefing. They had one shot to catch these individuals in the act, and failure wasn't an option. The safety of the First Lady, and by extension, national security, depended on their success. The Children's National Hospital buzzed with anticipation as staff prepared for the First Lady's visit. Secret Service agents moved methodically through the building, securing exits and checking credentials. What wasn't visible to the casual observer was Captain Jenkins's team, strategically positioned throughout the area. "Eagle's Nest to all units," Jenkins spoke into his secure communications device from his position in a surveillance van across the street. "Any sign of our targets?" "Unit 1, affirmative," came the response from an agent disguised as a hospital maintenance worker. "Blue Fusion just parked in the west lot. Mercer and Dawson exiting the vehicle." "Unit 3 here," reported another agent. "Silver Accord approaching from the north. Levin is driving." Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell, monitoring the operation from Fort Bradley via secure video link, turned to her communications specialist. "Alert the FBI team. Targets are on site." The First Lady's motorcade arrived precisely on schedule. As she emerged from her vehicle, smiling and waving to the small crowd of hospital staff, Jenkins spotted Walsh positioning himself behind a news van, adjusting a camera with an unusually long lens. "All units, stand by," Jenkins ordered. "Let's confirm illegal activity before moving in." Through high-powered surveillance equipment, the team observed as the 4 subjects established positions, creating a surveillance triangle around the First Lady's location. Levin removed what appeared to be a signal interceptor from his bag and powered it on. "That's it," Jenkins confirmed. "Technical Surveillance Countermeasures team is detecting active intercept attempts. All units, execute now." In a coordinated movement, plainclothes FBI agents and local police converged on all 4 targets simultaneously. The arrests were swift and discreet, barely noticed by the assembled media covering the First Lady's visit. "Target secured," the FBI team leader confirmed. "No incident." 3 hours later, President Trump arrived at the FBI field office where the 4 surveillance operatives were being held. He was accompanied by Mitchell and Jenkins, who had flown in from Fort Bradley to brief him on the findings. A complete search of their vehicles and equipment revealed extensive surveillance materials, Jenkins explained as they walked down the corridor. They had detailed maps of the First Lady's schedule, including information that wasn't public. They were planning to publish intrusive photographs alongside fabricated stories about her activities. Trump nodded gravely. "And the charges?" "Stalking, harassment, illegal surveillance, and potential violations of federal eavesdropping statutes," Mitchell replied. "The U.S. Attorney is reviewing the case now." To the surprise of both officers, Trump requested to speak with the detained individuals. After a brief consultation with the FBI, arrangements were made for a monitored meeting in a secure conference room. When Mercer, Dawson, Levin, and Walsh were brought in, their defiant expressions quickly gave way to shock at finding themselves face-to-face with the president. "I'm not here to debate politics," Trump began, his tone measured. "You have every right to disagree with me and my administration. That's America. What you don't have is the right to stalk my wife or invade her privacy." Levin, the apparent leader, found his voice first. "We were just doing our job. The public has a right to know." "To know what?" Trump interrupted. "What my wife wears to a children's hospital? Who she speaks with at charity events? Or were you hoping to catch something that would embarrass her?" "That would embarrass me." The room fell silent. Trump continued, his voice softer than his public persona typically allowed. "You feel voiceless in the current political climate. I understand that frustration better than you might think. But targeting family members isn't journalism, and it isn't political activism. It's harassment." What followed surprised everyone in the room, including Mitchell and Jenkins. Instead of demanding maximum charges, Trump proposed an alternative: a meeting with his communications team to discuss more constructive ways for them to express their concerns and perspectives. "You want to be heard. There are better ways to make that happen," Trump concluded. "But this stops now. The surveillance, the stalking, it ends today. Are we clear?" The 4 nodded, visibly stunned by the unexpected turn of events. Later, as they prepared to return to Washington, Trump paused to thank Mitchell and Jenkins. "Your team's work was exceptional," he told them. "You protected my family and handled this with the discretion it required." "Just doing our duty, Mr. President," Mitchell replied. Trump smiled slightly. "In my experience, Colonel, duty alone doesn't produce this level of dedication. It takes something more." He shook their hands. "I won't forget what you've done here." As the presidential helicopter lifted off from Fort Bradley the following morning, Mitchell and Jenkins stood watching from the landing zone. "Not exactly how I expected this to end," Jenkins admitted. Mitchell nodded. "It's easy to forget sometimes that behind all the politics, there are just people. Even presidents worry about their families." "Do you think those four will actually take him up on his offer?" Jenkins asked. "I don't know," Mitchell replied thoughtfully. "But in a nation as divided as ours has become, maybe understanding is as important as security." She turned toward the command center. "Either way, our job is done. The First Lady is safe, and that's what matters." As they walked back to headquarters, Mitchell reflected on the past 72 hours. In a political climate defined by its extremes, she had witnessed something unexpected, a moment where protection and understanding had found a delicate balance. Whether it would last beyond this incident was another question entirely, but for now, it was enough.